We want it gone. And that was supposed to be the time. So back in 1787, that's what they planned for this date.
David, when did this history start to get erased? When did we lose, because it was done for a reason.
Yeah.
There's no way that systematically this can be, you know, there's some things that you can lose. Oh, I didn't know that fact, or I didn't know that fact. But this is like the Statue of Liberty standing there.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, I don't know what that big lady is. And nobody knowing.
That's right.
And in fact, it's not only that we don't know who the big lady is, we're like, you know who that big lady is? She is the president of Halloween Town. And she comes and she takes your children with the torch. I mean, that's almost what it is.
Yeah.
We have not just forgotten history, we have turned it upside down to use it to hate each other.
There was a whole period of time, founding fathers passed anti-slavery law after anti-slavery law. 1789, they abolished slavery in any new territory. You couldn't become part of the United States if you had slavery. 1794, they banned the exportation of slaves. 1808, they banned the importation of slaves and slave trade. They're going through really great. 1820, Congress starts passing laws. They said, you remember that law the founders said about no states having slaves? We don't like that. We're going to repeal that. So they repealed the 1789 law, put in the Missouri Compromise, said if you come in with a free state, you got to come in the slave state. So the next 12 states that came in were mixed. Then they keep repealing laws, and they get to the 1850, the Fugitive Slave Law, 1850 Kansas-Nebraska Act. They're becoming more and more pro-slavery. So to do that, they do what people today have to do, and that is you have to rewrite history to justify your agenda.
I was in, this is maybe a year or so ago, and maybe probably about 2 years now, maybe. And I'm just starting to learn my history, and really starting to be really curious about all of this stuff in American history. And I just accepted the line, that I had learned in school. And I found myself down in, I think, Richmond, Virginia. Is that where the Confederate Museum is?
It's one of the museums, sure.
And I'm down there, and I'm in the gift shop, and I'm looking for a Confederate Constitution. And, I don't know if you've ever seen those, where you get the Constitution or the Declaration of Independence, and it's in a little envelope, and it's like all that really crappy parchment paper. And that's what I'm looking for. And the guy who's with me, I said, I got to find the Confederate Constitution. I want to read it. And so he just goes to the curator of the museum. And he says, do you have a copy of the Confederate Constitution? Glenn Beck is here, and he'd like to read it. And the guy says, oh, sure, absolutely. Next thing I know, he's like, yeah, well, it's upstairs. I'm like, okay, you keep the little envelopes upstairs, okay. I go up, and he takes out a box, and it's the original Constitution. And he rolls it out onto the table, and I'm like, I may have jam on my hands. I don't think this is not a good idea. But I read it, and I actually look at all of it, and I read it. It was clearly, this wasn't about state rights. This was clearly about slavery.
It was.
You can say whatever you want about state rights. It wasn't about state rights when to join the Confederacy, you had to be a slave state.
And you couldn't stay in the Confederacy if you ended slavery.
Correct.
If it's a slave, if it's states' rights, states get to choose.
Exactly right.
And there's a reason, too, that the title on it was called the Slaveholding Confederate States of America. That's part of the title.
Yeah.
Now, we never say that.
Yeah, I tell you, I learned more just from having that
reading the Constitution.
Just reading the Constitution.
Absolutely.
It's amazing what you can learn, America, from reading a Constitution. We should try it sometime. What do you say? All right, I'm going to take a break. How much time do I have? Because I don't want to get in. I've got some stuff here on yeah, okay, we're going to take a break. And when we come back, I want to show you what was in the newspaper, in the death announcements, of people who fought in the Revolutionary War. Oh, you won't believe the racism, or the lack of it. Next. We're back with David Barton, founder and president of Wall Builders. He's an amazing guy, because you can, when I get on and I say, here's what I think is going on, you can dispute that all you want, because that's my opinion. But when we talk about history, and you can produce the documents, and that's why I really believe David Barton is one of the most important people in America to save America today, because he'll give you his opinion, but he'll produce the documents to show you the fact. What was the relationship of our founders with African Americans? It depends on where you were. If you're in the South, it's a different relationship, right?
It was.
But our founders, the ones that really put everything together, they came from a world where we don't even understand it. We're striving to get back to this place. Are we not?
We are.
And I want to show. Now these are just these are from old newspapers. This one is Caesar Glover, a colored man supposed to be about 80 years of age. This is a obituary.
Obituary.
He was brought from Africa as a slave when a child. He served in the Revolutionary War and is one of the pensioners of the United States. What does this tell you?
Several things. That is a list of obituaries. It's not broken out black and white. He is right in with he's just a citizen. They're just telling you who's died. Didn't matter whether you were black or white or anything else. You're a citizen. But significantly there is the word pensioner. He's a pensioner of the United States. Now, what's that? Well, that goes with the veterans' benefits that were provided. Now, here's a document. You know, take that.
These always make me nervous. This is original, the last official address of His Excellency George Washington. This is his original from what year?
1783. This is when he resigns after we've won the revolution. 8 years, we now win it. He's going out. He has a message to the governors of 13 states, and he has a message to Congress. And, hey, Congress, by the way, this is what we need to do to take care of our veterans. Here's the kind of benefits we need to provide. For the officers, we want to give them a half pension for what they were getting. And so this is the first Veterans Benefit Bill program that Washington sets forth.
Okay. Tell me about the classes of African American and
Exactly.
whites.
He's a pensioner of the United States. He's not a white pensioner or a black pensioner. He's a soldier. He served his country. He gets the pension. We didn't have.
So there's no discussion of color in this
not
at all.
Not at all.
Everybody.
As a matter of fact, you know, we talked about Crispus Attucks earlier, who first guy shot down in the American Revolution. He was black. The other 4 guys shot down that day were white. He was laid in state at Faneuil Hall and laid in state for 4 days there for everybody to see. Now there's black laying in state. No paper ever even mentioned that he was black. It was not an issue. He was the guy who got shot down standing up for his country. And so these 5 guys got shot down. It wasn't until we got into the racism preceding the Civil War that the abolitionists had to say, hey, remember, our first martyr here was a black American. Nobody cared about it back in the early days because he is a soldier who fought for his country. He's a patriot. He laid in state right there.
Okay, this one is... at Providence, at an advanced age, Bristol Rhodes, a black man of the late Revolutionary Army, in which he long served with deserved reputation. At the siege of Yorktown, he was severely wounded, having unfortunately lost a leg and an arm, and has since assisted on pension. Same story.
Same story.
A colored man named Henry Hill died at Chillicothe not long since the age of 80 years. He served faithfully in the Revolutionary War and was a participant in the battles of Lexington, Brandywine, Monmouth, and Princeton and Yorktown. He was interred with honors of the war. What does that mean?
Not only a pension, but he got a full military funeral as any veteran would get. So that's a military funeral with all the honors that go with being a veteran.
How many people here had any idea that our founders, the people at this time, would take a African American and bury them with the full military rights and honors? Anybody here believe that before just now? Your wife. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And the last one here, what is interesting in this?
This is a little change of pace, but you can read what it is. Here's another black elected to office.
A free Negro man in the name of Thomas Hercules was on the 6th day of July chosen town clerk of that bureau by decided majority of votes. This, we mention, is proof of the growing liberality of the present age, when virtue and worth alone, and not mere color or tippery of rank and splendor, begin to recommend a man
places of trust and confidence.
Trust and confidence.
He got elected because of his worth and abilities. It wasn't because of what color he was or wasn't. It wasn't because of him scheming for office.
Does this not sound like Martin Luther King? This sounds like Martin Luther King.
That's a 1792 newspaper.
1792.
And blacks elected office, and just as a matter of fact, in the newspaper.
Again.